3 nurses vanished during a quiet night shift at a community clinic in Sacramento. No signs of struggle, no witnesses. Their cars were still in the parking lot. Their phones were found inside. And the security cameras? All went dark at exactly 2:56 a.m. For 6 days, no one had answers until investigators discovered a hidden tunnel beneath the building, and what they found inside changed everything. This isn't just a story about disappearance. It's about betrayal inside a place meant to heal, about power, silence, and 3 women who refused to be forgotten. Watch until the very end. Every chapter matters. Leave a comment with your thoughts, theories, or support for the survivors. Like the video if it made you feel something. And don't forget to subscribe. More true stories are coming. Sacramento, California. Mercy Ridge Community Clinic, 2:30 a.m. The hum of fluorescent lights and the soft rhythm of the wall clock were the only sounds that kept Nurse Allison Reed company. The clinic was dead quiet, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. No patients for the last 2 hours, no doctors on call, just her, the electronic monitor's occasional beep, and the cold glow of the late-night shift. Allison pulled her cardigan tighter around her scrubs and took a sip of stale coffee from her hospital mug. It had long gone cold, but she didn't care. She just needed something warm in her hands. It was her 3rd week covering the graveyard shift, and though she never said it out loud, the loneliness was starting to wear on her. The pediatric wing, usually full of noise and life, was sealed off, lights dimmed, doors locked. Across the hallway, the staff lounge was dark. Even security had stepped out for his routine perimeter check. She glanced at the monitors at the front desk, the security feed from the 4 hallway cameras. Nothing, just still, empty corridors. And then, something moved. Her eyes snapped back to the lower left feed, the west corridor, a flicker, a shadow. She leaned forward, blinking. Nothing. Just a long hallway and the reflection of ceiling lights on the polished tile floor. Allison sat back, exhaling. Okay, that was nothing, she muttered, forcing a small laugh. But then came the footsteps. Not heavy, not loud, just slow, deliberate, like someone trying not to be heard. They echoed faintly from the west wing, the same hallway where the pediatric unit sat locked for the night. She froze. Her hand hovered near the landline, but instead she grabbed her cell and hit the contact labeled Brianna. It rang twice before Brianna's groggy voice answered. "Al? It's 2:30. What's wrong?" Allison whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. "There's someone here. I heard footsteps near Peds. The cameras glitched for a second. I think someone's in the building." A pause, then a sleepy sigh. "Girl, please tell me you're not pulling a Grey's Anatomy moment on me." "I'm serious, Bree. I saw something, a shadow, and now I'm hearing—" She stopped, her eyes locked onto the hallway. A shape, just for a second, moving past the open break room door at the far end. No sound, no face. "I just saw it again," she whispered. Someone is in here." There was a rustle as Brianna sat up. "Okay. Did you call security?" "He's doing rounds outside. He won't be back for another 10 minutes. Then lock the nurse station door and stay put. It's probably a janitor or someone who forgot their badge. You know how this place is." "I don't think so. Whoever it is, they're avoiding the cameras. Like they know where they are." "Al, you've been pulling doubles all week. You're tired. You're jumpy. Trust me. You're gonna laugh about this tomorrow." Allison looked again at the camera feed. All 4 monitors went black. One by one. Pop. 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 Static. "Bree, the cameras just cut out," Allison said, her voice sharp with panic now. "All of them." There was silence on the line. Then, finally, "Okay, that's not funny. I'm not joking. All right, I'm coming in early. I'll be there in 15. Just stay on the line. Allison got up, clutching her phone, moving slowly toward the back of the nurse's station. She reached for the emergency panel and flipped the switch to trigger the hallway lights to full brightness. Nothing. The lights flickered, then stayed dim. From behind the hallway corner, something clanged. Metal on tile. Like a gurney shifting or a surgical tray knocked over. Brianna. Al, don't move. Just stay where you are, okay? I'm on my way. I'm putting on my shoes right now. Allison turned slowly, backing toward the storage room behind the nurse station, her breath quickening. Then she heard it. A second set of footsteps. Not near the pediatric wing. Near her, approaching. I have to go, she whispered. No, Allison, stay with me. But the call cut off. 7:05 a.m., the morning shift arrived to find the front desk empty, the nurse station door unlocked. Allison's coffee mug was still half full. Brianna's car sat in the staff parking lot. So did Jessica Monroe's, their friend who had clocked in just before 3 a.m. No one could reach them. No texts, no calls returned, no sign of any of them. The cameras were offline. The logs were blank. 3 nurses, all on the same night shift, gone without a trace. And no one saw a thing. 7:45 a.m. Mercy Ridge Community Clinic. Nurse Supervisor Karen Doyle walked into the clinic's front doors, clutching a paper coffee cup and her daily clipboard. Her Monday morning routine was muscle memory by now. Check in with the night shift, skim reports, coordinate rooms for incoming patients. But something was off. The lights at the nurse station were still dimmed. No greeting, no smell of fresh bleach from the overnight janitor, and, most of all, no sign of Allison, Brianna, or Jessica. Karen frowned, checking the wall clock. The morning team was due in 15 minutes, but the night shift should still be here, finishing paperwork. Instead, silence. She walked behind the desk and stopped. Allison's phone was still on the charger, buzzing faintly with missed calls and texts. One was from Brianna's mom, time-stamped at 4:17 a.m. You girls okay? Why didn't you answer my call? Karen's heart began to race. She tried the staff break room, empty. Checked the medication storage, locked. She flipped open her radio and called the security officer. Rick, have you seen the night nurses? The voice crackled back. I saw them around 2Q when I stepped out. But after that? No. Thought they were still inside. Karen's fingers tightened around the walkie. Come to the nurse station. Now. 8:12 a.m. By the time security arrived, so had the clinic's administrator and 2 more nurses from the day team. Tension thickened like fog. Jessica's car was still in her usual spot. So was Brianna's, and she wasn't supposed to be working that night, only covering the last few hours for another nurse. A check of the shift logs showed that all 3 nurses had properly clocked in, but none of them ever clocked out. Check the surveillance feeds, the administrator barked. Rick's face paled. Already tried. The system's down. All 4 hallway cameras went offline at 2:56 a.m. There's nothing past that point. And you didn't think to mention that earlier? I thought it was a power glitch. A silent wave passed through the group. This wasn't just a late clockout or missed shift change. 3 young women had vanished from inside a locked building during a graveyard shift, and no one had noticed until morning. 9:30 a.m., Sacramento Police Department. Detective Marlene Cruz stood in front of the main desk, glancing down at the clinic's incident report. She'd worked missing persons before. Teenagers, runaways, the occasional abusive boyfriend situation. But this was different. 3 nurses, all vanished during a shift. Phones left behind, wallets untouched. No struggle, no sign of forced entry. And, worst of all, no footage. She tapped her pen against the report and looked up. "Send a unit to lock the clinic down," she told the officer on intake. "Get forensics in there now. I want swipe card logs, staff schedules, and I want to talk to the last person who saw them before 2:30 a.m. "And who was that?" the officer asked. Cruz flipped the page. "Security guard, Rick Tennyson." She paused, her voice growing colder. "And if he left that building unsecured even for 10 minutes, I want to know why." 10:14 a.m. Mercy Ridge rear parking lot. The lot behind the clinic was quiet. A city maintenance truck idled near the loading dock. Detective Cruz walked the perimeter with her partner, Officer Devin Watts. She noted the security cameras mounted on the building's corners. All pointed at entrances. None facing the narrow alley along the side. "That alley's not on the clinic's layout," she said. Devin nodded. "Could be an old service path. Let's check it." They followed the alley down to a side door, half hidden behind a trash enclosure. A security pad blinked red. Swiping her gloved finger along the door's frame, Cruz found a faint scrape. Fresh, the kind you see when a key or a tool is forced into a lock. She glanced at her partner. Someone knew this door, knew it wasn't monitored, knew it wasn't used. Devin nodded grimly. Someone from inside. 11:38 a.m. Clinic break room. Detective Cruz stood in front of the lockers lining the back hallway. Most were locked, but Jessica's swung open. Inside, her purse, car keys, and folded jacket. In the jacket's pocket, a small disposable notebook. Cruz flipped it open. Page after page of patient notes, shift reminders, and then a final scribble at the bottom. Ally said someone was following her in the West Wing. Third night this week. Said she heard someone whisper her name. The detective's hand froze mid-page. She turned to the attending officer. "Get me a full list of night shift staff. Every name, every role, every time card." She held up the notebook. "And get someone to talk to the families. I want to know everything these girls said in the last 48 hours. Every fear, every weird comment, every offhand joke." She closed the locker. "This wasn't random. They didn't run. And they didn't disappear." She paused, scanning the hallway. Someone made them vanish. Sacramento PD, 3:10 p.m. Detective Cruz sat at her desk, a whiteboard beside her rapidly filling with photos, timestamps, and names. At the top, Reed, Allison. 25 Monroe, Jessica. 27 Taylor, Brianna. 26. 3 nurses, all close friends, all scheduled for overlapping hours the night of March 12th. All vanished between 2:30 a.m. and 4:18 a.m. The missing persons team had combed through clinic badge logs. The last known verified movement was at 2:29 a.m., when Allison used her access card to open the medication storage room. After that, nothing. Phone pings. All 3 phones had disconnected from the clinic's Wi-Fi at 3:02 a.m., but none of them ever reconnected to any other network. No outgoing calls. No Uber orders. No pings outside the building. Cruz underlined it on the board. No exit data. But someone had entered. Mercy Ridge Clinic. Surveillance maintenance closet. Technician Ava Lynn crouched beside the clinic's DVR tower. Her gloves were dusty from rewiring, but she had good news. "I restored partial power to the backup drive," she told Cruz. "It's corrupted, but I was able to extract a 27-second clip from camera 3. West hallway. Time-stamped 2:55 a.m. She handed over a flash drive. "You're not gonna like it." 2:55 a.m. West hallway footage. Recovered. The footage is grainy, low lit. At first, the hallway is empty. Then Allison appears walking slowly, cautiously. She turns her head left and right. She's talking on the phone, most likely to Brianna. She stops near the pediatric wing entrance, looks over her shoulder. Suddenly, she flinches. as if she heard something behind her. Then she walks out of frame. A full 6 seconds later, another shape enters frame from the opposite end. Not a patient, not in scrubs. A tall male, wearing a gray hoodie and dark pants. His face is turned from the camera. He pauses, looks both ways. Then slowly, deliberately, follows the same direction Allison just walked. The footage cuts out. "Who the hell is that?" Cruz murmured, rewinding the clip. No one matching that description was registered as entering the building that night. No staff badge, no patient entry, no one authorized. "Could be someone let in by hand," Officer Watts said beside her. "Side door." Cruz nodded. "Or someone with a duplicate keycard." She flipped open the incident report again and circled a name. Dale Henning. Maintenance contractor. Worked night shifts 3 times a week. Had access to restricted areas. Fired 4 months ago for aggressive behavior and inappropriate conduct with nurses. But his badge was never deactivated. She turned to Watts. "Get me a current address. If he still has that card, he could have walked right in." 5:22 p.m., Citrus Heights, CA. A beat-up blue Ford Ranger sat outside a crumbling duplex. Cruz and Watts approached cautiously. The landlord confirmed Dale still rented the back unit. They knocked. No answer. They tried the door, unlocked. Inside, dark, musty. A mattress on the floor. Fast food wrappers, a backpack in the corner, and on the table, a white plastic hospital badge, cracked at the corner, the name scratched off. Watts carefully lifted it with a gloved hand. "It's a Mercy Ridge staff card." Cruz opened the backpack. Inside, gloves, a black hoodie, and a folded map. A hand-drawn floor plan of Mercy Ridge Clinic, with a red X marked on the west hallway exit. 7:11 p.m. Mercy Ridge Clinic basement. At the back of the building, beneath a long-unused stairwell, officers removed a sealed metal hatch. It led to a narrow access tunnel, once used decades ago for maintenance wiring. It ran under the building, connected to an old utility substation behind the clinic. Flashlights illuminated the damp, dust-covered passage, and at the far end, 3 sets of fresh footprints, leading away from the building. Cruz stood at the tunnel's entrance, heart pounding. "They didn't walk out the front door," she said. "They were taken." March 13th, 8:00 a.m. Sacramento PD, Conference Room B. Detective Marlene Cruz stood in front of the task force team. The mood was tense, the kind of tension that fills a room when 3 young women have vanished, and the clock's been ticking for more than 30 hours. She clicked the remote, pulling up the grainy clip from the clinic's security footage. This is 2:55 a.m., the last time Allison Reed was seen. She's visibly scared. She's on the phone with Brianna Taylor, who, based on cell tower logs, was already inside the building. Click. A still image froze on the man in the hoodie. This is the unknown subject. No ID badge, no authorization, walked straight in. Seconds after Allison disappears off camera. She looked at the room. "We have reason to believe he used the old staff keycard belonging to Dale Henning. Terminated 4 months ago. Card was never deactivated." Click. A scanned image of the floor plan appeared. He entered through the west service corridor, most likely the side door near the trash enclosure. We found pry marks on the locking plate. That entry wasn't forced. He had the tools, the knowledge, and time to plan this. She paused. "But here's the thing." Click. Badge logs showed that side door access was re-enabled manually from the central security terminal at 1:48 a.m. A collective murmur spread through the room. Watts spoke first. "You're saying someone inside the clinic turned the system back on, gave him a way in?" Cruz nodded. "Exactly." March 13th, 10:42 a.m. Mercy Ridge Clinic, Security Office. Rick Tennyson, the night security guard, sat across from Cruz and Watts, visibly sweating. I didn't enable anything. I was on the loading dock. I told the officers already. You said you left for your smoke break at 1:50 a.m., Cruz said, flipping open her notebook. That's exactly 2 minutes after the manual override was made on the badge system. I swear I didn't touch it. Watts folded his arms. Who else has access to the terminal? Rick hesitated. Just me and Dr. Patel. He's head of diagnostics. Sometimes he stays late and— Cruz leaned in. Was Dr. Patel there last night? No, I don't think so. Did you see him? No, but he has override access. I swear, I didn't. Cruz slid a photo across the table. It was Dale Henning, taken 3 months prior. Blurry, but clear enough. Rick stared. Color drained from his face. I know this guy. He used to creep around the back halls, always showed up after hours even when his shift was over. One of the nurses— Allison, I think, complained once, said he stared too long. March 13th, 1:03 p.m., Sacramento PD, Evidence Room. Cruz and Watts reviewed the contents of the backpack found at Henning's residence. They'd recovered a burner phone. No contacts, but one active text thread. Unknown number. Access tonight? Henning. Can't, unless someone flips the override. You still got Patel? Cruz exhaled sharply. He had help. Watts narrowed his eyes. You think Dr. Patel's involved? I think someone inside that building let Henning back in. Someone who didn't just forget to deactivate a badge. She pointed to the map again. There's no way Henning knew about that sublevel tunnel unless someone told him. March 13th, 4:47 p.m. Interview Room 4. Dr. Suresh Patel sat straight-backed, composed, hands folded in his lap. He didn't flinch when Cruz laid the burner phone transcripts in front of him. I have no relationship with that man, Patel said calmly. I never spoke to him. Your badge logged into the terminal at 1:46 a.m., Cruz replied. System override occurred at 1:48. Then you left the building at 1:52. There's a camera at the south exit. Want me to show you the footage? He hesitated. Not a denial, but not an admission either. Finally, he said, You don't know what you're dealing with. Cruz didn't blink. No? Then help me understand. Patel looked away. It's not what you think. 3 women are missing, she said coldly. If you're not the reason, then you need to start talking. Because right now, your name's on the override log, and the guy who broke into your building used a keycard you had the authority to disable months ago. Patel's voice dropped. I didn't think he'd go through with it. Cruz stiffened. Go through with what? He didn't answer. March 13th, 7:21 p.m. Sacramento PD, outside interrogation room. Cruz closed the file and turned to Watts. Get a search warrant for Patel's property. House, car, everything. I want phone records, financials, employee logs, all of it. Watts raised a brow. You think he planned it? I think he enabled it, she said. And if 3 girls disappeared under his watch, I want to know why. She stared through the two-way glass at the silent man inside. He helped someone walk straight through the front door, she said, and now 3 women haven't walked out. March 14th, 6:15 a.m. behind Mercy Ridge Clinic. The sun was barely up, but the perimeter was already sealed with yellow tape and guarded by uniformed officers. Crime scene lights cast an eerie glow on the back access door and the storm drain it connected to, a decades-old escape route from when Mercy Ridge had been a dual-purpose trauma and psychiatric facility. Detective Cruz adjusted her flashlight and stepped down into the exposed service tunnel. A faint scent of mildew clung to the walls. The air was still, dead. Behind her, Officer Watts crouched beside the concrete hatch, comparing the prints they found yesterday to the clinic's shoes log. Definitely not from any staff-issued footwear, he muttered. One of these tracks is a size 13, heavy tread. Could be military boots. Cruz moved deeper into the passage. The walls narrowed. Then, about 30 feet in, a split. 2 paths. Left, collapsed and filled with debris. Right, passable. Cruz pointed. That's our route. March 14th, 6:42 a.m. tunnel path, 200 yards east. The officers moved in teams of 2, mapping every inch of the path. Along the walls, scratch marks, plastic wrappers, an old juice bottle with a hospital barcode on it. Then they found it. An iron service door. Scratched, recently disturbed. It led upward into what used to be the clinic's long-abandoned psych ward, sealed off for nearly a decade, officially condemned and awaiting renovation. Cruz forced it open. 6:44 a.m. interior. Abandoned wing, Mercy Ridge flashlights flickered against peeling paint and warped ceiling tiles. The hall was lined with doors, all once patient rooms, now used for storage. Or worse. Cruz stepped carefully. Her light landed on a scuffed ID badge. Monroe, Jessica. Our night was cracked, lying face down in the dust. Watts's voice came from up ahead. "Ma'am, you need to see this." She followed his beam of light through an open door into room 108. Inside, they found 3 stained mattresses on the floor, a small cooler with remnants of protein bars, empty IV bags, soiled towels, and in the corner, a camcorder. Cruz didn't touch it, just stared. They'd been here. Not for an hour. For days. Maybe more. 8:19 a.m. Mercy Ridge conference room. Cruz briefed the team. Henning used the back tunnel. Patel unlocked the system for him. He brought the women here. Not out of the building. Down, into the condemned psych wing, and kept them in makeshift holding rooms. She clicked through the photos taken at the scene. The setup shows planning. Restraints, food, fluids, someone with medical knowledge, someone who knew how to keep them alive, and hidden. An officer interrupted. "What about the camcorder?" "Being processed now," she replied. "But if there's footage, it might tell us how long they were kept there, and where they were taken next." Another officer leaned forward. "So why move them at all? Why not just leave them there?" Cruz met his eyes. "Because someone got nervous. Either Henning panicked or Patel knew we were closing in. Whatever the reason, they didn't just vanish. They were moved. And soon." 9:03 a.m. Forensics lab, downtown Sacramento. Technicians extracted a single short video file from the camcorder. Timestamp, March 13th, 4:09 a.m. Silent footage. 3 women, disoriented, exhausted, wrapped in blankets, sitting in a small room. A man, face not shown, paces nearby. He wears hospital gloves. Then he leans toward the camera. A reflection in a shiny surface behind him reveals a partial view. Tall, balding, medium build, Cruz rewound the frame, zoomed, paused. The reflection was faint but clear enough. Not Henning, not Patel, someone else. 10:44 a.m. Cruz's desk. She called up the internal staff directory for Mercy Ridge's older database, including archived contractors. She scrolled past names until one stood out. Charles M. Devlin, EMT Supervisor, 2014-2021. Terminated after complaints of boundary violations with patients. No criminal charges, faded from radar. But he matched the build, the look, and had motive. She turned to Watts. "Find Devlin, last address, known vehicles, family connections. I want everything. I don't care if he's across the country. He knew that wing. He used to work night response. If someone wanted to keep people alive but off-grid, he's the one." March 14th, 12:17 p.m., Sacramento PD, Records Division. Detective Cruz stared at the profile of Charles Matthew Devlin. age 42. Former EMT supervisor at Mercy Ridge. Terminated 2 years ago after multiple patient complaints, mostly verbal misconduct, boundary violations, and one reported incident of entering a female patient's room without authorization. Never charged. After termination, he vanished from the healthcare industry. No new licenses, no forwarding address, just disappeared. Until now. March 14th, 12:43 p.m. Cruise's unmarked car, Midtown Sacramento. Last known address was a basement unit near 22nd and Arden, Officer Watts said, flipping through the printed sheet. Landlord says he left without notice 8 months ago. Left a bunch of stuff behind, including this. He handed Cruise a faded photo taken by the landlord during a cleanup. It showed a cluttered room. In the background, a bulletin board. Tacked on it, photographs of Mercy Ridge, floor plans, staff rosters, 3 of the faces circled in red: Allison Reed, Breonna Taylor, Jessica Monroe. Cruise's stomach turned. This wasn't random, she said. He had them picked out. March 14th, 2:20 p.m. Mercy Ridge Clinic. Staff Records Archives. Cruise returned to the clinic, this time to dig into old paper records stored in a back room. She found Devlin's original application file. Buried inside was a reference letter, signed by none other than Dr. Suresh Patel. Of course, Cruise muttered. Patel had vouched for Devlin years earlier. Brought him on during the clinic's expansion phase. Maybe even covered for him when the complaints started. That's why Patel enabled the override. That's why he helped Henning. He was protecting Devlin, or worse, helping him. March 14th, 4:03 p.m., Patel's interrogation, round 2. This time, Cruise didn't wait for small talk. You vouched for Devlin. You gave him access. You logged into the override system at 1:46 a.m. the night 3 women were taken. Tell me what he has on you. Patel stayed quiet. Cruise slammed a photo onto the table, the frame from the camcorder showing Devlin's partial reflection. This is your friend, your partner? Patel's voice was thin. I didn't think he would hurt them. You're a licensed physician and you watched 3 women get drugged and dragged through a tunnel. You enabled that. That makes you an accomplice. I wasn't. He hesitated. He said he just needed to talk to them, that he wanted to scare them, to make a point. A point about what? Patel's gaze dropped. They were going to report us. Cruise froze. Us? Billing fraud. Patient data manipulation. Jessica worked in intake. She was starting to ask questions. He panicked. You're telling me Devlin kidnapped 3 nurses to stop them from reporting Medicare fraud? Patel looked up. No. He did it because he thinks no one takes him seriously. He said the clinic used him, chewed him up, and threw him out. He said they needed to learn respect. Cruise was silent for a beat. Then, where is he now? I don't know, Patel whispered, but he mentioned a place he used during his EMT days. Said it was outside town, quiet, used to be a field clinic during wildfires. March 14th, 7:28 p.m., north of Sacramento, rural foothills. Officers spread out along a gravel access road in the Sierra foothills, guided by crews and a ranger unit. Old records showed a temporary medical outpost had been constructed there during the 2018 fires. It had been abandoned since. At 7:46 p.m., they found it. A single prefab building. Generator behind it. One light flickering inside. No movement. SWAT moved in quietly. Entry team breached the door. Inside, 3 narrow cots, empty IV hooks, signs of recent habitation. A folding chair overturned and a metal tray, with restraints. But no Devlin and no nurses. March 14th, 8:04 p.m., back of the prefab unit. A boot print in soft dirt. Recent, leading into the woods. And a torn strip of blue cotton, the kind used in hospital scrubs, caught on a fence post. Cruz stared into the trees, jaw tight. They were here. March 14th, 9:17 p.m. Sierra Foothills, Northern California. The forest swallowed light faster than the sun could set. What little visibility remained came from the search team's floodlights and the sharp white beams of handheld flashlights slicing through the trees. Detective Cruz stood just beyond the prefab unit, squinting at the torn piece of blue fabric still fluttering in the wind. It wasn't much, but it meant the nurses had been moved recently. Hours ago. Maybe less. "We're not far behind him," she said quietly to Officer Watts. "He's moving, but he's not sprinting. He's trying to stay hidden, not get caught." Watts pointed into the tree line. "There's an old ranger's cabin marked on the map, quarter-mile northeast. No utilities, but roofs still intact." Cruz gave a single nod. "Let's go." March 14th, 9:38 p.m. Ranger's cabin, exterior. The place was barely more than a shed, a leftover structure from the forestry department left to rot decades ago. Shingles hung off the roof. One window was boarded shut. The other had a faint flicker of light coming through. They moved silently, radioing for backup, but not waiting. Cruz stepped onto the creaking porch, weapon drawn. She peered through the cracked window. Inside, movement. One figure hunched over, arms raised, another sitting. Then two more, slouched, unmoving. Cruz motioned. On 3. 9:40 p.m. Cabin entry. Interior. The door burst open with a single kick. Officers rushed in. "Police! Hands where we can see them!" The man in the center froze, turned slowly. Charles Devlin, unshaven, eyes wild. He didn't resist, just lifted his hands with a slow, eerie smile. "You're late," he said. On the floor behind him, wrapped in the hospital blankets and barely conscious, were Allison, Brianna, and Jessica. March 14th, 10:13 p.m. Cabin-secured paramedics rushed in within minutes. Allison stirred first, her eyelids fluttering. Brianna's pulse was weak but steady. Jessica was the most disoriented, struggling to speak, eyes unfocused. All three bore signs of dehydration, exhaustion, and mild chemical sedation. But they were alive. Cruz crouched beside Allison. "Can you hear me?" A weak nod. Was he the only one here? Allison blinked, then mouthed the word, "Yes." Devlin sat cuffed outside, flanked by officers. He hadn't stopped talking since the arrest. "I wasn't going to hurt them," he repeated. They were learning what it feels like to be discarded. Like I was. Cruz ignored him. Her attention stayed on the girls. They were safe now. Broken, but safe. March 15th, 7:02 a.m. Mercy Ridge General Hospital, ICU, Secure Wing. All three nurses were admitted under police protection. Press waited outside. Reporters flooded social media. News vans lined the block. Inside, family members cried in quiet hallways. Parents clutched hands. Siblings brought flowers and handwritten notes. Detective Cruz stood by the glass window outside the ICU, watching as doctors checked vitals and whispered calmly to the girls. She exhaled, a slow, deliberate breath. This wasn't over, but it was the first sunrise in days that didn't feel like darkness. March 15th, 11:15 a.m., Mercy Ridge General Hospital, ICU, room 304. Allison Reed sat propped up in a hospital bed, an IV in her arm and warm sunlight casting a soft glow across her pale face. She blinked slowly as Detective Cruz entered the room, notebook in hand. There were dark circles under Allison's eyes. Her voice was raw, but her mind sharp. Cruz pulled up the chair. "I don't want to push too hard," she said gently, "but anything you remember, anything, could help us understand how this happened." Allison swallowed. "I remember everything," she whispered. 2:15 a.m., March 12th, from Allison's account. I heard footsteps first. That's what started it. I thought it was Rick, the security guy, but they were too slow, like someone trying not to be heard. I called Brianna, told her I felt like someone was watching me. She laughed at first, said I was being dramatic, but then the cameras started flickering. That's when I knew something was wrong. I went to check the pediatric wing. That's when I saw him. Just a shape. Hoodie. I couldn't see his face, but he didn't run. He waited. Let me see him. I turned to get back to the nurse station, but something hit me. Hard. Like I couldn't breathe. After that, it's blurry. But I remember being dragged. I heard Brianna yelling my name. She must have come looking for me. March 15th, 12:05 p.m. Room 305, Brianna Taylor. Brianna's voice was hoarse, her eyes glassy but alert. "He must have come back for us one at a time," she murmured. After Allison went silent, I left the break room to find her. He got me near the elevators. I tried to fight. I scratched him. I know I did, on the left side of his neck. Cruz made a note. "We'll get a full forensic exam today. Your nails might still have trace." He said, "You don't listen. None of you listen." Over and over again. Like we were kids being punished. He kept saying we had no loyalty, that we deserved silence. I didn't understand what he meant until I saw the files. Room 307, Jessica Monroe. Jessica was the last to regain full speech. She had trouble focusing, but when she did, her words cut deeper than Cruz expected. "I figured out something a week before it happened," she said, "about the insurance claims. There were bills going out for procedures we never did. Double entries, wrong patient codes. I told Allison. I think she told someone else. And then Devlin showed up. We didn't even know he was still around, but he knew our names. I think he was listening to us for weeks before that night, watching the logs, waiting." She paused. "He didn't just want us quiet. He wanted to feel in control." March 15th, 2:42 p.m., Mercy Ridge Police Holding Facility, Interrogation Room 1. Charles Devlin stared at the wall, arms crossed. "You're too late," he told Cruz when she entered. "They already made me into the villain. Doesn't matter what I say now." Cruz stayed quiet. Let the silence work. Finally, he looked at her. They were going to ruin what little I had left. That clinic, I built half that night shift protocol. I trained their emergency response team. Then Patel tossed me out because some intern didn't like my tone. "So you decided to kidnap 3 women?" Cruz said coldly. "You call that justice?" "No," he said, tilting his head. "I call it balance." March 15th, 4 to 10 p.m., Hospital, Observation Room. Cruz stood behind the two-way mirror with Officer Watts, watching the 3 nurses talk quietly together for the first time since the rescue. They were pale, weak, but alive. "They remember almost everything," Cruz said. Watts nodded. "What now?" "Now," she said, closing her notebook, "we connect Devlin to Patel and Henning. We build the full case." She turned away from the glass. "And we make sure that what happened to them never happens to anyone else again." March 16th, 9 and 12 a.m., Sacramento PD, Financial Crimes Division stacks of paper. Bank records, internal memos, billing ledgers. Detective Cruz sat at a conference table surrounded by analysts from the department's white-collar crimes unit. What had started as a missing persons case was now evolving into something bigger. Much bigger. And darker. March 16th, 10:47 a.m. Key finding, Matter 1, Ghost Billing. Jessica Monroe's suspicions had been dead on. Over the last 6 months, Mercy Ridge had submitted over $400,000 in Medicare and Medicaid claims for procedures that were either performed on deceased patients, double billed, or never happened at all. Many were logged under night shift nurses' names, including Allison, Brianna, and Jessica. They hadn't known, but someone had used their identities. March 16th, 11:30 a.m. Key finding, number 2, fake signatures. Digital forms had been signed using employee credentials long after those nurses had clocked out, sometimes hours into the night. The audit trail showed clear signs of manipulation. Cruz leaned back in her chair, furious. The nurses had become a liability the moment they started asking questions. Someone had made a choice. Silence them. Erase them. Before they exposed everything. March 16th, 1:05 p.m. Interview with Mercy Ridge Administrator. Harold Crane Cruz sat across from the clinic's administrator, a soft-spoken, middle-aged man in an expensive suit who kept fiddling with his wedding ring. He tried to maintain calm, but his voice cracked as she laid out the timeline. "You approved thousands of dollars in questionable reimbursements," Cruz said, sliding a folder across the table. "I delegate most of that to billing," Crane deflected. "Your login credentials were used to override billing disputes at 2:13 a.m. on the night of the abduction." "I was at home." "Then someone had your password, or you gave it to someone who did." Crane finally dropped his gaze. "Devlin came to me 3 weeks before the girls went missing," he admitted. "He said Patel was going to turn everything over to the state, that the nurses were talking. He wanted time, said he could handle it quietly." Cruz stiffened. "So you gave him time?" "I didn't know he would take them," Crane insisted. "I thought maybe he'd threaten them, scare them into silence. That's all." "That's all? You don't understand," he snapped. "If this clinic goes under, hundreds of people lose access to care. One whistleblower, one headline, and it's gone. Just like that." Cruz stood slowly. "3 women disappeared under your roof, Mr. Crane. You let it happen to protect your spreadsheets." He didn't answer. March 16th, 3:20 p.m. Back at Mercy Ridge. Administrative wing, sealed office with a warrant in hand, Cruz and Watts entered Patel's former office. There, buried behind a locked file cabinet drawer, was the final piece, an external hard drive. On it, internal emails between Patel and Crane, memos warning Devlin's access badge hadn't been revoked, a flagged message sent to the state board by Jessica Monroe, dated 1 week before her disappearance. Subject line: Possible fraud, need guidance, unsent. Draft only. Someone had stopped her before she hit send. March 16th, 6:01 p.m. Mercy Ridge Clinic. Public statement. Under mounting pressure and media scrutiny, Mercy Ridge released a bland, rehearsed statement. "We are fully cooperating with law enforcement and are grateful for the safe return of our employees. We take these allegations seriously and will be conducting an internal review." It wasn't enough. By nightfall, state investigators had seized full control of the clinic's records. Harold Crane resigned within 24 hours. Patel was charged with multiple counts of conspiracy and obstruction. Devlin remained in custody, awaiting trial. Henning was indicted as an accessory to kidnapping. And the story was far from over. March 16th, 9:45 p.m., hospital, recovery room. Allison, Brianna, and Jessica sat in silence, watching the news on mute. When the Mercy Ridge logo flashed on screen, Jessica whispered, "They tried to make us disappear." Allison nodded, her voice firm for the first time since her rescue. "But we're still here." March 17th, 7:30 a.m. Mercy Ridge General Hospital. Rehabilitation Wing. Morning light filtered through white curtains. The hallway smelled of antiseptic and weak coffee. It was quiet, until a voice called gently from the doorway. "Ladies, you have visitors." A social worker stepped aside, allowing 3 women to enter. Mothers. Tearful, shaking, arms outstretched. For the first time since that awful night, Allison, Brianna, and Jessica were allowed more than just a doctor or a detective. Now it was family. Safe. Real. They didn't talk much at first. Words weren't necessary. They just held each other. March 17th, 11:42 a.m., hospital courtyard, press frenzy. The world hadn't stayed quiet. News vans lined the curb, microphones shoved toward anyone in scrubs. Headlines spun across local networks. Kidnapped nurses found alive. Whistleblower fraud scheme at Mercy Ridge. Clinic officials resign amid scandal. A lawyer for the families stood on the steps and read a short statement. These young women showed extraordinary courage and resilience. The system failed them. But now the truth will be heard. In full. The media storm was just beginning. March 17th, 2:15 p.m., Sacramento PD, case prep meeting. Detective Cruz sat with the district attorney's team, laying out timelines, statements, and evidence. What we have, she said, is a deliberate conspiracy. Patel enabled access. Henning provided logistics. Devlin executed the abductions. Crane covered it all up. The prosecutor nodded. We charged them all. State and federal counts. Medicare fraud, obstruction, kidnapping, conspiracy, false imprisonment. And the clinic? Being audited by the feds. It's going to collapse. Fast. Cruz didn't flinch. She wasn't here to save a clinic. She was here for justice. March 17th, 5:22 p.m., hospital room. Personal moments. Allison stared at her own reflection in the mirror. She barely recognized herself. Tired, thinner, but still there. Still standing. Jessica was curled up with a sketchbook, drawing quietly. Brianna, earbuds in, scrolled through old photos on her phone, ones she hadn't looked at in weeks. A nurse entered with a clipboard. The therapist can meet you all together, or one-on-one. Allison looked to the others. Together, they nodded. One room, Jessica said. We went through it together. March 18th, 10:12 a.m., therapy room. Group session. The counselor spoke gently. There's no right way to process trauma, but talking about what you felt, even if it's messy, can help your brain reconnect with what happened. Allison was the first to speak. I thought I'd never see my mom again, or my dog. I thought maybe they'd find my name on a plaque someday, and that's all I'd be. Jessica. He wanted us to feel small, replaceable. I don't know if I'll ever trust a door being closed again. Brianna took a deep breath. I wasn't scared at first. I was angry. That they thought we wouldn't fight. That they thought we wouldn't be found. She looked at the others. But we were. March 18th, 1:30 p.m. Local news interview, request denied. The hospital's media liaison entered their room with a polite smile. CBS wants a statement, national coverage. They're offering travel expenses, even compensation for an exclusive. Allison shook her head. Not yet. Jessica nodded. Maybe not ever. We're not here to be a story, Brianna added. We're here to heal. March 18th, 9:40 p.m. Final note. As the hospital grew quiet for the night, the girls sat in the corner lounge drinking tea, wrapped in blankets. There was a silence between them. Not the silence of trauma, but the shared quiet of survival. Allison broke it. You know what scares me the most? Jessica looked over. What? That people are going to forget this happened. That someday they'll say it was just a weird fluke, or blame us. No, Brianna said firmly. They won't forget. You know why? Allison raised an eyebrow. Because next time someone goes missing, Brianna said, they'll remember us. May 2nd, 8:45 a.m. Sacramento County Superior Court, Courtroom 3B. The trial of Charles Devlin, Dr. Suresh Patel, Dale Henning, and Harold Crane had drawn national attention. What started as a missing persons case had now become a symbol of corruption, abuse of power, and the quiet strength of three women who refused to be erased. Outside the courthouse, protesters held signs that read, "We believe the nurses. Patients before profits." They tried to silence them. Inside, the courtroom was packed. 9:05 a.m. All four defendants sat at the defense table, neatly dressed, calm, controlled, but only one of them, Charles Devlin, looked completely detached. Hands folded. Blank expression. When Allison, Brianna, and Jessica entered with the prosecution team, he turned slowly to look at them. They did not look away. 9:30 a.m. Opening statements, the lead prosecutor spoke with a calm, devastating clarity. This case is not just about billing fraud. It's about betrayal. It's about power being abused behind hospital doors. These women were not just employees. They were witnesses, and for that, they were punished. The people sitting at that table did not act in panic. They acted with intent, with coordination, with silence as their weapon. 11:04 a.m. Testimony, Brianna Taylor. She took the stand with trembling hands, but when she spoke, her voice was steady. He didn't yell. He didn't tie us down, but he made us feel like we had no names, like we were ghosts. He'd tell us we were lucky, that we got to be part of something important. He'd say things like, "This is bigger than you," like it justified everything. And the worst part, we started to believe we might never be found. 2:18 p.m. Testimony, Allison Reed. Hospitals are supposed to be sacred. We're trained to follow protocol, to trust the system. But the system turned its back on us. It chose money over ethics. And when we noticed, when we asked questions, we became liabilities. We didn't just disappear, we were removed. 3:40 p.m. Testimony, Jessica Monroe. I found discrepancies in billing records. I flagged them. I planned to report them. The next week I was being dragged through a hallway I had walked every day for years. Only now I was no longer a nurse. I was a problem to be solved. May 4. Defendant's turn. Devlin refused to testify. Henning agreed to a plea deal, admitting to his role in exchange for a reduced sentence. Patel, under pressure, tried to distance himself from Devlin. He manipulated all of us. I thought he would only intimidate them. The prosecution responded. You didn't just let him in. You gave him access, cover, and time. You helped him vanish three women into the walls of your own hospital. Harold Crane, the clinic's administrator, denied involvement until the very end. Until digital records, financial logs, and internal emails proved otherwise. He had known. He had looked the other way. He had signed off. May 9, 4:22 p.m. Verdict. The jury deliberated for 9 hours. The verdict. Charles Devlin, guilty on all counts: kidnapping, false imprisonment, assault, conspiracy. Dr. Patel, guilty, conspiracy, obstruction, ethics violations. Dale Henning, guilty, accessory to kidnapping. Harold Crane, guilty, fraud, criminal negligence, conspiracy. In the gallery, silence turned to tears. Allison held Jessica's hand. Brianna closed her eyes and exhaled. Slowly, steadily, like letting go of a weight she'd carried for months. They weren't victims anymore. They were survivors. June 20th, 6:52 a.m., East Sacramento. Residential neighborhood. The sun was just rising when Allison Reed stepped onto her porch, a mug of tea in hand. The morning was still. Birds chirping, sprinklers humming, the neighborhood slowly waking. It had been nearly 3 months since she left the hospital. In that time, she hadn't once set foot back inside Mercy Ridge. She wasn't sure she ever would, but she'd started walking again, sleeping more than 4 hours, laughing sometimes. Her dog, Max, padded up to her feet and rested his head on her knee. She scratched behind his ears and whispered, "We made it, buddy." July 1st, 11:30 a.m. Community Health Center, Midtown, Sacramento. Jessica Monroe sat in a small office filled with plants and natural light. It wasn't a hospital. It wasn't even a clinic, really. Just a non-profit outreach center where she now volunteered twice a week, helping low-income patients navigate their insurance paperwork. It wasn't flashy, but it felt honest. The first time she walked through the doors, she froze in place. The smell of antiseptic, the echo of hard floors, the clipboard in her hand. Her body tensed, but the woman at the front desk smiled and said, "We're glad you're here." And Jessica took a breath and walked forward. July 15th, 2:18 p.m., Coffee House, downtown. Brianna Taylor sat across from a young nursing student. The girl was maybe 19, nervous, eager, clutching a resume. "I just want to help people," she said. Brianna smiled. "Then don't let anyone tell you that kindness makes you weak." They talked for an hour. Afterward, Brianna jotted down a note in her journal. "This is the version of me they didn't take." August 3, 5:50 p.m., KCRA Channel 3 local news broadcast. The segment was short, tasteful, carefully edited with the women's approval. Today, Sacramento honored 3 nurses with the Community Courage Award, not just for surviving one of the most shocking crimes in local memory, but for turning their pain into purpose. A photo appeared on screen. Allison, Brianna, and Jessica, arms around each other, smiling. Not fake smiles, earned ones. They've become advocates, mentors, and reminders that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means moving forward anyway. August 15th, 7:03 p.m., private dinner, backyard gathering. They didn't do public events often, but this one was private, just close friends and family, candles on the table, music playing softly. They toasted to survival, to honesty, to each other. "Remember when we used to joke about transferring to night shifts in Florida?" Brianna laughed. Jessica rolled her eyes. "I'd take a Florida humidity over this any day." Allison raised her glass. "To the girls who didn't disappear." They clinked glasses. No speeches, no ceremonies, just life. Simple, imperfect, and theirs again. September 10th, 10:02 a.m., California Department of Justice, public statement. The Attorney General stepped up to the podium. Behind him, 3 framed portraits. Not of the victims, but of the convicted. Devlin, Patel, Crane, Henning. This case revealed a hidden illness beneath the surface of a trusted institution. It reminded us that silence is not safety, and complicity is not protection. Today, we close the legal chapter of this case, but the moral lesson remains. Those who seek to harm the vulnerable from within systems of care will be found and held accountable. September 12th, 4:38 p.m. State Licensing Board. Final hearing. Mercy Ridge Clinic was no longer operational. Its license was revoked, its leadership permanently banned from practicing in California. Remaining staff were offered new placements, under strict review. A new clinic would one day take its place, but not under the same name, and not with the same silence. October 1st, 9:90 a.m. Classroom, Sacramento College of Nursing. Allison Reed stood at the front of a classroom of first-year nursing students. A guest speaker, not as a victim, but as a professional. She spoke without notes. "When I say trust your instincts, I don't mean during emergencies. I mean in break rooms, in meetings, in late-night conversations that make your stomach twist. You're not just caretakers, you're witnesses. You matter, even when people in charge pretend you don't." The students were quiet, focused. She ended with this: "They thought we'd stay quiet. They were wrong." October 10th, 6:45 p.m., Riverside Memorial Park, small ceremony. Just before sunset, a small group gathered by the water. Allison, Brianna, and Jessica stood together, each holding a single white lantern. They weren't there to mourn. They were there to let go. Each lantern carried a handwritten message, not to their captors, but to themselves. You're allowed to live? You don't have to be afraid anymore. They didn't break you. They lit the candles. One by one, the lanterns floated gently down the river, disappearing into the golden haze of dusk. Final scene. 3 women, still healing, still waking up some mornings with hesitation in their breath, but no longer hiding. They returned to work, to life, to each other. And their story, once almost buried, became a reminder that even when power is used to destroy, truth can still survive. And sometimes the people who were almost forgotten become the reason the system is forced to remember. The end.